coding has changed in fascinating ways. GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot.
GitHub Copilot.
GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot.
Copilot. Copilot.
Copilot. Copilot.
Copilot.
Copilot.
Copilot. AI has arrived, and Copilot is all about it. One way to describe it is right from its documentation. GitHub Copilot is an AI pair programmer that offers autocomplete style suggestions as you code. But what does that even mean to say your AI pair programmer? In short, it helps you code quickly. If you've ever pair programmed, you can get work done twice as fast. And that's what Copilot's goal is by offering autocomplete style suggestions as you code. But to really get a sense of what I'm saying, you gotta see it. So let's take a look. Before we can get started with Copilot, we need to have a GitHub account. And if we don't have one, all we need to do is just come to this page here and use your email to sign up with GitHub. Once you do that, just hop on over to Visual Studio Code. Under where the extension marketplace is, search for Copilot and install the extension. After that's installed, Copilot will prompt you to sign in to GitHub with a prompt such as what you see here. And these are simple instructions to get set up if you need to reference it. You'll know you have everything set up correctly and Copilot is working when it starts giving you predictions as you start coding, such as what you see here that's shaded in the gray, and also what you see here. Also in Visual Studio Code, at the lower right-hand corner, there will be a Copilot icon at the bottom. Before we get into any coding, I want to show you something that's pretty cool. You can just ask Copilot technical questions directly. So let's say you're studying up for some technical interview. You could ask in a comment with a Q followed by a colon. Let's think of a good interview question. What does solid stand for in object-oriented programming? Once I see a suggestion by Copilot in gray, I just hit tab to accept it. And there we go. Single responsibility principle, open close principle, list scope substitution principle, etc. And now if I wanted to ask specifically about one of these answers here, let's say I wanted more information on the single responsibility principle. It figures out that's what I'm about to ask, and it is right. A class should have one and only one reason to change, meaning that the class should have only one job. Beautiful. Let's ask one more. And the open close principle was exactly what I was going to ask. And there you go. Objects or entities should be open for extension but closed for modification, which is correct. But now let's turn to coding, and we'll start with an HTML example and see how Copilot speeds up the experience. So for example, if I just started off by specifying doc type and hit enter, it already knows that HTML tag is going to be the next obvious tag to add. And within that, I can add my head, and it immediately suggests a title right below that. I'll close the head, and sure enough, body is suggested along with an H1 tag and paragraph. So let's see how things look so far. I'll open up my preview by clicking Show Preview here, which is using the Live Preview extension. So on line 7, we have one H1 tag, but let's say we wanted to have one that had some styling in it. We could just say an H1 with inline styling. And there you go. I could also ask for a bulleted list, create a bulleted list, and boom, as easy as that. Now styles should be in a style sheet, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this H1 tag here and use this items.css that I already have, which is going to remove the bullets from our list once it is referenced. So if I go to the head and ask Copilot, reference the style sheet named items.css. Let's see if it understands. And sure enough, it does, and our bullets are gone. And if we modify our H1 tag, add blue H1 headings, I tab over, and there you go. But now let's look for a more appealing example where we're trying to add bootstrap. So in this HTML example here, I have some text that represents various types of alerts. So I'm going to open up preview for this document here. It's looking very plain, but once we add bootstrap, Copilot should create a link to reference it, and you can see the text format has changed just a little bit. And as I scroll down, if I just go right above line 17, and start a div, once I hit the space bar, it can already figure out that most likely I want to add a class for a success alert, which is correct. So I'll go right below to line 18 and close that div and repeat the same thing right above line 20 and continue for the rest. And there you have it, within a few seconds, fully styled using Bootstrap. If you've ever dealt with Regex, you know how confusing it could be to interpret the patterns. But with Copilot by your side, life could be a lot easier because you could ask Copilot to write a particular pattern for you. So for example, if I wanted to Regex to match the phone number in the format of, that's exactly it, area code plus 7 digits separated by a hyphen. If I hit enter, it will give me a variable, in this case called phone regex, with that pattern. So I'll select that. And now I might want to test it though. So I'm going to test the variable name, which is phone regex. And sure enough, it pre-populates it for me saying against the phone number. And that's good. So I will hit enter. This solution almost looks good, but I want it to be able to be written to a console. So let me add with console.log. And when I hit enter, there you go. So now I can run this, and if the test pass, it will return a Boolean of true. So when I run this, it is true, since all these are numbers in the correct format. So why don't we add a letter in here and run the test again, and it should return false, which it does. I'm going to test one more time, but this time I'm going to add 4 digits in the prefix, and it should be false again. Perfect. Now let's chat about unit testing, which can be a bit involved, but Copilot can assist. Here I have a calculator function that takes in a string, and you could choose what operator you want, whether it's addition, subtraction, etc., and it will return a value. So why don't I ask Copilot to test our calculator function and see what it returns. So it looks like it's going to console.log each of the operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. But what I want is to create actual test conditions. So we can ask Copilot to create unit tests for the calculator function. And it's starting like with one approach, but what I want is to use asserts. I'll go ahead and set up a variable for assert and begin with my assert statement. And sure enough, it knows to calculate the first condition. And I'll add a statement that says calculator can add. And now it knows that my approach is to use asserts, so it can go ahead and check every other condition, such as subtraction, multiplication, and also division. So imagine if you're using a really large application and there's a tedious amount of conditions to add. You can get a good picture of how much time Copilot can save you with unit tests. Let's turn our attention to SQL. Now, I personally always had a hard time remembering SQL syntax, so I was glad to see how Copilot can assist. Like in this SQL example here in my Go file. All I have right now is a category struct on line 3 through 7 that defines a structure that has 3 fields, and on line 8, create tables will create the table tasks in the database. So to get going, on line 13, I'll start writing a function called create category summaries that takes in a database connection and returns an array of category summary. And from here, I could see what Copilot is suggesting, and I like what I see, so I'm going to accept this by tabbing. And ultimately, we see on line 14, we create a list of category summary along with the error object referenced. Then after that, we run the query. Line 20, we loop through the results and fill in the list of category summary. And last but not least, return the list of category summary. All this within a few seconds. Now, we've seen Copilot give us a suggestion in several examples, but I want to point out that you don't always need to choose the first suggestion. For example, if I put in a request to create a function that takes a string and I wanted to return it backwards, I can start tabbing to begin accepting what it's going to present to me. However, if I wasn't satisfied with this solution, I can just hover over it while the text is still gray, and then either navigate to the next solution that it gives me, accept that, or accept it one word at a time. But in my case right now, what I want to show you is that you can click on the ellipses over here and choose Open GitHub Copilot. And at the very top, it'll say that it's synthesizing the various solutions that it offers for what I requested. I can see there's a variety of different ways that it could reverse a string. I'll go ahead and choose this solution right here, which is nice and short. I'll click on Accept Solution, and right below it, I can ask to test this function. I'll hit Tab here and run the app. And sure enough, it returns the word that was passed in hello spelt backwards. We just talked about choosing from Copilot's multiple solutions, but now I'd like to show you that when we're prompting Copilot, we can have multiple conditions. Take this Python file, for example. Let's say I wanted to parse a list of expenses with some conditions. And just to save some time, I'll paste in one line at a time. And this is me just pasting a couple of pieces of code in, not Copilot. So starting on line 4, I'll just paste in my function definition, parse expenses, that accepts a string. And I'm going to want Copilot to do 3 things that I'll prompt in my comments. The first is to parse the list of expenses and return the list of triples, date, value, and currency. Next, I want to ignore lines starting with that number sign. And I also want Copilot to parse the date using datetime format. Now, on line 10, I'll create a list to store the parsed expenses. And now I feel good. This is a good starting point where I can ask Copilot its suggestions. So I will hit Control Enter to see the different solutions it offers. And as I sift through the different solutions, what I'm looking for is what is closest to what I want with the least amount of work to modify. Everything's looking pretty decent, and I'll go with this one. I can see it meets my conditions, parsing the list starting on line 11, and on line 12 it ignores the lines starting with the number sign. And next on line 13 through 16, we split the line into 3 parts, date, value, and currency, and then append the parsed data, including the correct date format that we specified in the comments, to the list of expenses. And lastly, we return the list on line 17. And this is all pretty cool because imagine if you're writing a lot of code, how many times you could actually leverage the power of referencing Copilot's solutions. The better you get at prompting it, the more effective it's going to be and the more time you save. For pricing information, you can just come to this site here and click on Compare Plans. Or if you want to go straight to the free trial, just click over here. But if you are a student, you'll definitely want to hop on over to this site here. And under students, sign up for the Student Developer Pack. We covered quite a bit, but there is so much more on the horizon with AI in general, and specifically Copilot. I'm planning on releasing several more videos on Copilot, so subscribe to be notified about them. And if you got value out of this one, definitely hit that like button. Thanks for joining, and I will see you in the next one. But there is so much more on the horizon with AI in general. So subscribe to be notified for upcoming. That sucked. And if you got value out of this video, definitely hit the like button. That's better. I say videos too much. Video. Ooh, I only said video once. Oh, thanks for telling me it was a video. So we covered. So we covered quite. We'll do one more. Final take. Final countdown. Thanks for joining, and I will see you in the next one. All right. That's a wrap.